Picture this. You are the #1 player in the world. You have won 2 straight US Open titles. You are chasing a 3rd in a row, something no woman has done since Serena Williams. And you walk through Times Square expecting to see your own face looking back at you from 40 feet in the air. And instead you see a 21-year-old who has never won a Grand Slam. That is reportedly the exact moment Aryna Sabalenka's US Open week went sideways. And by the time you finish this video, you are going to understand exactly why Nike's marketing decisions this week have turned into one of the most talked about subplots heading into Flushing Meadows. Because this isn't just a story about a billboard, it's a story about a $42 t-shirt that vanished before the tournament even started, a kit that fans are comparing to a shower sponge in a Spider-Man costume, and a rising Filipino star who might be quietly becoming the most commercially powerful player in the sport without hitting a single competitive ball in New York. So let's break down exactly how we got here, because the layers to this story go a lot deeper than one billboard. Let's start with the player who set this entire chain reaction in motion, Alex Eala. If you haven't been paying attention to her rise, now is the time to start, because Nike clearly already has. Alex is 21 years old, she's from Quezon City in the Philippines, and while she hasn't broken through for a Grand Slam title yet, the buzz around her has been building for a while, fueled by a fan base that travels with her energy on social media the way you'd expect from a much bigger name. This week, that fanbase showed up in a way that even seasoned industry watchers didn't expect. Alex unveiled her US Open look on social media, and it wasn't just another routine kit reveal. Nike gave her a royal blue Nike Court Slam dress priced at $140, finished with white and black trim, and this is the detail that made it feel intentional rather than accidental. Basketball-inspired mesh paneling built specifically as a nod to the New York stage. This wasn't a recycled design pulled off a rack. This was a piece built around her for this moment in this city. But the dress wasn't even the headline. The headline was what came with it. Alex's very first signature Nike shirt. A black oversized tee, $42, with a floral design across the front and her name stitched into floral artwork on the back, sitting right alongside the swoosh and the Just Do It slogan. For a player without a major title to her name, getting your own signature piece from Nike is a significant show of faith from the brand. It says, in corporate terms, we are betting on you as a personality, not just an athlete we sponsor. And then something happened that even Nike may not have fully anticipated. The shirt sold out. Not slowly. Not over a few days. Tennis and fashion writer Jessica Schiffer flagged it on social media on a Tuesday night, and the reaction from her followers was a mix of shock and disbelief. To the point that someone directly asked her whether the shirt had actually sold out everywhere, or whether it had simply become temporarily unavailable on Nike's US website. Schiffer didn't hedge. Her answer was direct: yes, it sold out, though it might restock. By Wednesday afternoon, Nike's own women's tennis storefront had the shirt listed as coming soon, which in retail language basically confirms that demand caught the brand off guard enough to justify bringing more stock in. Now here's where the story stops being a simple feel-good underdog moment and turns into something with real tension. Because while Alex's shirt was vanishing off shelves, merchandise from 3 of the biggest names in tennis, Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and Aryna Sabalenka, was reportedly still sitting there, fully available, untouched by the same demand. Sit with that for a second. Alcaraz and Sinner are the 2 most dominant men in the sport right now, both multiple Grand Slam champions, both massive global draws. Sabalenka is the reigning back-to-back US Open champion and the #1 ranked woman on tour. And yet it was the 21-year-old without a major title whose merchandise disappeared first. That's not a minor footnote. That's the kind of retail data that makes marketing departments sit up in meetings and start rewriting campaign plans in real time. And Nike didn't sit on that data quietly, almost as if to put an exclamation point on the moment. Nike put Alex's image up on billboards across New York City in the lead up to the US Open, massive Jumbotron placements, the kind of visibility usually reserved for a brand's top-tier global ambassadors. For a rising player without a Grand Slam trophy yet, that's an extraordinary vote of confidence from one of the biggest sportswear companies on the planet. It tells you Nike isn't just tracking her results on the court. They're tracking her cultural gravity, the passionate, highly engaged fan base that shows up for her, buys for her, and apparently outspends fans of players with far bigger resumes when given the chance. Now let's flip over to the other side of this story, because this is where things get uncomfortable. According to multiple reports, Sabalenka walked into New York expecting to be the centerpiece of Nike's US Open campaign. That expectation wasn't unreasonable. She's the two-time defending champion. She's been the most dominant woman in tennis for close to 2 years. She's chasing a third consecutive US Open title, a feat that, again, hasn't been done by a woman since Serena Williams. If any player on tour has earned the right to expect top billing from her own sponsor walking into the year's final major, it's her. Instead, she found her merchandise sitting on shelves while a rising star's gear was being resold at a premium. And she found Alex's face plastered across the city while her own was, according to reports, nowhere to be seen in that same Billboard rotation. Reportedly, she was furious. And honestly, if you put yourself in her shoes for even a second, it's not hard to understand why that would sting. But here's the twist that makes this story so much messier than sponsor snubs their champion. Because Sabalenka's own kit situation had already created a separate firestorm, one that had nothing to do with Alex Eala at all, and it may have made Nike's decision easier to justify internally, even if it wasn't framed that way publicly. When Sabalenka posted her US Open kit reveal with the simple caption, "It's game time. See you soon at US Open," the reaction from fans was immediate and it was brutal. The outfit featured black mesh netting draped over an orange and red sports bra and bike short combination, and within hours the comparison started rolling in. A fishing net, a Spider-Man costume. One fan didn't hold back at all, writing that words could not express how much they hated the kit and openly wondering what Nike was thinking. Another fan called it tacky. Someone joked that they owned a $5.99 mesh shower sponge that looked suspiciously similar and was, in their words, large enough to wear as a miniskirt. Even fans who clearly liked Sabalenka as a player and a personality were struggling to defend this one, with one comment summing up the mood perfectly. "I love you, but this is hard to defend, and it wasn't just about aesthetics." This is the part of the story that actually explains why Sabalenka was so frustrated, and it goes deeper than one ugly outfit. The kit wasn't exclusive to her. It was part of a shared Nike line, meaning other players on Nike's roster could walk onto a court wearing the exact same design. For most players, that's a normal, unremarkable thing, how shared team lines are common across the sport. But for the world number one, a two-time defending champion chasing a third straight title in the tournament's biggest stage, fans saw it as a genuine slight. One widely shared reaction nailed the sentiment: a shared design doesn't say icon, it says roster player. And that phrase stuck because it captured exactly what was bothering people. This wasn't really about mesh fabric or color choices. It was about status. It was about the gap between what Sabalenka has actually achieved on the court and how her own sponsor appeared to be positioning her off it. This wasn't even the first time this exact frustration had surfaced. Fans pointed back to the French Open earlier this year, where another player on Nike's roster, ranked well outside the top 100, was seen wearing a kit that looked identical to Sabalenka's. Think about how strange that is. The best player in the world, on paper, indistinguishable in branding from someone ranked well over 100 spots below her. As one fan put it bluntly at the time, nothing about the look separated her from the rest of the field. A strange position for the rest of the field. A strange position for someone who is arguably the face of women's tennis to be standing in. To her credit, Sabalenka didn't dodge the criticism when she was asked about it directly. Speaking to reporters ahead of the Canadian Open, she actually gave a fairly thoughtful explanation of the concept behind this year's Nike Grand Slam collection. She explained that each major had been built around a different sport-inspired theme. The Australian Open leaned into surf culture. The French Open drew from ballet, Wimbledon was built around a cricket-inspired look, and the US Open theme, fittingly, was basketball. She even laughed about it herself, joking that with the current kit she felt like she looked like a basketball, calling it a fun one to wear. That's not the reaction of someone trying to distance herself from the design. That's someone leaning into it publicly, even while privately, according to reports, frustrated with the bigger picture. And that bigger picture is actually where her comments get a lot more interesting, because Sabalenka revealed something that reframes this entire story. She said she had personally been pushing Nike to be more creative with her designs, telling reporters, "For so long, they have been sticking to basic stuff. I've been pushing them to create some fun stuff, different shapes, and different idea of the dress." Read that again. This isn't a player who's indifferent to her sponsor relationship. This is a player who has actively been lobbying her own brand for more originality, more identity, more standout design, and got a mesh outfit that half the internet compared to a shower accessory. She doubled down publicly anyway, saying, "I really think honestly that recently they've been more creative and more fun, and we're definitely onto something really fun, especially for the next year." She added that she genuinely loved the outfit and that fashion by its nature leaves room for people to disagree. You cannot impress everyone with your outfits. There is room for whatever, basically anything you like. That confidence is admirable. But, especially for the next year, is the phrase that stings the most in hindsight, because of something else that reportedly surfaced in late 2025. Indications that Nike was working toward finally giving Sabalenka her own true signature kit line, starting in 2027. Which means, if that timeline holds, this US Open, the 2026 edition, could end up being the last major of her career where she competes without a signature collection of her own. Let that sink in against everything else in this story. A 21-year-old without a Grand Slam title just got her own signature shirt and sold it out in a single morning. Meanwhile, the two-time defending champion, who has been on the brand for close to a decade, has reportedly had to wait years and is still waiting for hers. And this loyalty angle matters because Sabalenka isn't some replaceable name on Nike's roster who just showed up. She has stayed with the brand through a stretch of tennis dominance that most players spend a career chasing. Since the start of 2025 alone, she has racked up 11 titles. She's the reigning back-to-back US Open champion. She's the #1 ranked player in the world by almost any traditional measure of star power in this sport. Ranking, titles, consistency, name recognition among hardcore tennis fans. Sabalenka should be the unquestioned centerpiece of Nike's biggest hardcourt campaign of the year. Instead, the brand's most viral, most in-demand piece of merchandise this US Open cycle belongs to a player still chasing her first major. So what does that actually tell us? It tells us something that a lot of traditional sports marketing has been slow to fully grasp. Rankings and trophies don't automatically translate into commercial demand the way they used to. Alex has tapped into something Nike clearly values just as much, if not more, in 2026, a passionately engaged, highly online fan base with real purchasing power and a hunger to show support in a tangible way. Filipino tennis fans and Southeast Asian sports fans more broadly have shown up in massive numbers for Alex all year, and this merchandise sellout is a data point that's hard to ignore. Nike doesn't run Billboard campaigns based purely on sentiment. They run them based on projected return, engagement metrics, and, as we just saw, literal real-time sales data. When a shirt sells out before its featured athlete has played a single match at the tournament it was made for, that's not luck. That's a brand recognizing where the momentum actually is and moving fast to capitalize on it. None of that erases what Sabalenka has built, and it's worth being fair here. Being outsold in short-term hype around a t-shirt launch is not the same as losing your position as the sport's most dominant player. Trophies aren't decided by Billboard placement. But perception matters in professional sports, especially at the business level, and optics like this one, a shared kit design, a Billboard snub, a signature line reportedly still a year away, create a narrative that Sabalenka now has to publicly manage, whether she wants to or not, and she's already shown us how she plans to manage it. Her own words point to exactly the response you'd expect from someone with her competitive mentality. She said she would take the court, defend her title, and let the outcome speak louder than any marketing campaign. In other words, forget the billboards, forget the shirts, watch the scoreboard. That mentality is going to be tested immediately once the tournament begins, because Sabalenka isn't walking into Flushing Meadows chasing just another title. She's chasing history. A third consecutive US Open championship would tie her with an extremely short list of legends and put her name directly alongside Serena Williams as the only woman to accomplish that feat in the modern era. If she pulls it off, this entire Billboard controversy becomes a footnote, a strange, slightly awkward subplot from a tournament she dominated anyway. Champions have a way of making off-court noise disappear the moment they start winning matches that matter. But if she stumbles early or drops the title, this story doesn't go away. It gets amplified. Every headline about a shaky performance will inevitably reference the sponsor snub, the sold-out shirt, the billboard she wasn't on. That's the uncomfortable reality of pairing a commercial controversy with the most pressure-filled tournament of your season. The narrative around you becomes tied to your results in a way that's completely out of your control. Meanwhile, Alex walks into this US Open in a fascinating position of her own, and it's worth pausing on just how unusual her situation actually is. She's arriving with more commercial buzz than players with far bigger resumes, more visibility than some seeded contenders, and a signature product line that's already outperforming expectations before she's played a competitive point. That kind of attention can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's a huge vote of confidence and a financial win regardless of what happens on court. On the other hand, it raises the stakes for her performance in a way that a quieter tournament wouldn't, when your face is on billboards across the host city and your merchandise is outselling the sport's biggest stars. Fans and media start expecting results to match the hype. That's pressure that a lot of 21-year-olds without a major title haven't had to carry into a Grand Slam before. How she handles that spotlight match by match will say a lot about her readiness for the next stage of her career, because commercial momentum and competitive momentum don't always move at the same speed, and sports history is full of examples of both directions. Zoom out even further, and this story becomes bigger than 2 players and 1 clothing brand. It's a real-time example of how sponsorship dynamics in tennis are shifting. For years, sponsorship hierarchies followed a fairly predictable pattern. Ranking and trophies determined star power, and marketing dollars followed accordingly. What's happening this week suggests that formula is evolving. Engaged, passionate, digitally connected fan bases, the kind that show up instantly for a sold-out shirt drop, are becoming just as valuable to a brand like Nike as ranking points. That's a meaningful shift, and it's one that other players, agents, and sponsors across the sport are almost certainly watching closely right now. If a player without a Grand Slam title can outsell the world #1 and land Billboard placement over 2-time defending champions in the same city, that's a signal to every young player building their own fan base. Results matter, but connection and cultural reach matter more than they used to. For Nike specifically, this is a moment they'll need to manage carefully going forward. They now have a genuine star confirmed by market data in Alex, and they have a proven, decorated champion in Sabalenka who has stayed loyal to the brand through years of dominance while reportedly still waiting for the signature recognition she's been asking for. Handled well, Nike can actually elevate both players simultaneously. There's no rule saying only one athlete gets to be the face of a campaign. Handled poorly, they risk exactly what's happening in the headlines right now. A story about internal favoritism overshadowing what should have been 2 separate, positive stories about 2 talented women heading into the same Grand Slam. So where does this actually leave us heading into the tournament? Confirmed, Alex's signature shirt sold out rapidly while merchandise from Alcaraz, Sinner, and Sabalenka remained available, according to reporting from Jessica Schiffer, and Nike's storefront listing the item as coming soon backs that up.